What is a headwind in business? I've helped people with a lot of these. I'll go through and I'll tell you exactly what it is in this short video. As entrepreneurs and business owners, we know that if we have a clear plan, anything becomes possible. And if you can have a clear plan, a clear process to create that plan, and a way to create clarity with your partner or spouse, you can drive to amazing heights. All right, so a headwind in business, in short, is the polite way of saying it's a challenge, it's obstacles, it's some sort of unforeseen issue that a business is facing. Now, the variety of different ways that this can happen. Sometimes it can be around our people. Maybe you've had people who unexpectedly leave. Or maybe you have people that are being very, very resistant to a certain change. These can definitely create sorts of headwinds. If you imagine the headwind where it originates is ships that were crossing the Atlantic from Europe to the Americas in the early 1800s would ride the trade winds. And if they were trying to go into the headwind, they couldn't go straight at it. They'd have to go this way, then they'd have to go this way, then they'd have to go this way, and back and forth. They'd have to get, and it would be a lot harder and a lot bigger of a challenge to get where they needed to go. Didn't mean they didn't get there, but it just meant that there were more challenges that were created with it. And one of the greatest headwinds I see is with people. This is where if you have a senior leader and sometimes the senior leader can be the biggest headwind of all. If they aren't clear in the vision of where they're going or how they're trying to get there, they can cause a lot of challenges for everybody else in the team. Now, some other areas where I've seen headwinds, it can be market conditions. Sometimes we get unforeseen things that come out of nowhere, and there's big market disruptors that leave us like, oh my goodness. I mean, think about it. When you think about what Amazon has done to retailers, Amazon created unbelievable headwinds for all sorts of small retailers and some large retailers. And as a result, they either had to adjust or they weren't going to get where they were going. They were going to fail. So thinking about what are the market conditions that are out there. Now, other things that can happen, this can be if the economy gets a lot tighter, maybe it's going to be harder for certain types of high-end goods, or who knows what it is. But as things get tighter, or maybe there's some very positives and suddenly the economy is doing incredibly well, and there's other people coming into that. It's understanding what that is. There can sometimes be, I work with some larger organizations that are in the mid-cap range in the finance industry, and man, they've got, one of them is in the crypto space, and the regulatory headwinds are tremendous. They comply with everything they do, but the headwinds that are being created because there's unforeseen changes and obstacles from FINRA and all the other governmental entities, it's a moving target. So it makes it more and more of a challenge on a regular basis for them to figure out, holy smokes, how do I keep fighting into these headwinds? And it doesn't mean that they give up, but it does mean that they may have to adjust and pivot and adjust and pivot and adjust and pivot more to make sure that they're following in with that. And the last one from a headwind perspective that I think is pretty easy and evident for everybody to see is think about COVID. What happened when COVID happened? Well, we had all sorts of headwinds around. We couldn't even let people come to work. So we had to figure out, well, it was a huge unforeseen challenge, massive obstacle in being able to create a work from anywhere environment where people could remote in. It also created massive headwinds with the supply chain. You know, people suddenly didn't have things. So how do we make do without them? How do we adjust? How do we pivot? How do we communicate? But in essence, headwinds are just part of everyday life and businesses. But the more that you as the senior leader can take a breath, rise above it, and look and figure out where are we at? What are those potential challenges? If those things come, how do we pivot? How do we adjust? How do we tack into the wind? How do we do that reach back and forth so that we're still going where we need to go? It may take a little bit longer, but eventually we'll get there. So ideally you found some value with that. If you're looking at starting a business, I can't recommend high enough. Well, I guess I wrote it, so I shouldn't be a little cautious about that. But we have a full course at Aspiring Solopreneur. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Keep smiling.